a great time, A little bit about Avrielle. Avrielle is the mother to Shiloh and a baby on the way. She is the wife to Elijah. And I tell you what, guys, she is the best friend Amanda has, could have. She is so supportive. She is so loving. She's, it makes me feel like, oh, my wife is in good hands, unless they're going to Target or Aritzia. And then I feel like, I still feel like she's in good hands. But without further ado, welcome them both up, Amanda and Avrielle.
She's my best friend. You mess with her, you mess with me. You mess with me, you mess with her, you mess with us. You better pray and run.
I love that audio.
That was pretty lit. That was pretty lit. Hey, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
So good to see you. Y'all, this session, I love my husband. He's great. But this is the session I was really most excited about to do today. I'm so passionate about friendships because when you find good friendships, it is just like a well of life, and it really gives you the courage to do anything because you have people with you.
Yes.
And so this session is called The Rules of Making and Keeping Kingdom Friendships. And I use the word rules very loosely because there are no rules to this, but we're gonna talk more so principles. So what me and Abe are gonna do is talk a little bit about what we've learned whenever it comes to friendships. And then we're gonna also open it up for Q&A after that. So I'm really excited to kick it off. So in the beginning, we're gonna talk about making friendships. What are some things, some principles that you've learned when it comes to making some really valuable friendships?
So what comes to mind is that scripture that talks about a man that wants or has friends shows himself friendly. Mm-hmm. And obviously we know, you have to be friendly, you have to be warm, but I think with making friendships, especially as females, we really do feed off warmth and the intentionality and feeling like somebody's actually interested, because this has happened to me, maybe it hasn't happened to you guys. When you try to become friends with someone and it's like you're not getting that energy back, and it almost feels like, am I pursuing you? Am I a man at this point?
Yeah. Am I a man?
Yeah, what's happening here, What is this cat and mouse game? But it's I think sometimes women forget that a huge part of making friends is actually being warm and inviting and being actually showing that you're interested back. Because we can tend to be hard to get, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And I think that you just can't do that in a female relationship.
Yeah.
I was doing that with Elijah in the beginning, and that's because you gonna work for this. Okay?
Yes!
But with a woman, it's let's both show that we're both interested because that's just not gonna work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna be playing hard to get when it comes to friendships. One of the reasons why I was super excited about this session is I believe that there's an anointing on Avrielle's life for friendships. Some people are just good with relationships, and Avrielle has this anointing for friendships. She stewards people so well. She's really big on speaking life into people, and she understands being a good friend. And one of the things that she did that kind of set the precedent for how our relationship began was we did a program together, and at the end of it, she DM'd me and she said, "Hey girl, I just want to let you know, I think that we would make great friends." I can't even remember what she said, something let me know if you're open to hanging out or something like that. And I was just I don't think anybody has ever said that to me before. When's the last time someone has come up to you and said, "Hey, let's be friends,"
It's giving grade 7.
Avrielle is Canadian, so she won't say 7th grade, she'll say grade 7.
Oh, yeah.
But Canadians talk cooler than us, I think. Yeah. Kamisha did. Yeah, she's Canadian. And so I think a lot of us kind of fear putting ourselves out there when it comes to expressing interest in friendships, kind of striking up the conversation. Like, what do you think that even comes from?
I think social media.
Oh.
Not all of it.
Yeah.
I think a big part of it is social media, but I think naturally as human beings, we want to self-preserve. We don't want to like feel like, oh, I'm putting myself out there and this person's going to reject me. Because rejection just doesn't feel good. Nobody likes it. But how many of us have felt that? Yeah, it sucks. It's not a good feeling. And I think that once you felt it once, you do everything that you can to not feel it again.
Yeah.
But one thing about rejection is like rejection begets rejection. So it's like, because you're trying so hard not to be rejected, you end up being like this island or this, you know, you try to isolate yourself, or you say you're open and you want to be friends, but you're not giving that energy back, I would say. So I feel like it boils down to self-preservation. Like, we just want to preserve ourselves. We want to protect ourselves. And then that ends up like making us more rejected, because women are not going to just chase you. You know,
that's real.
You have to show that interest back as well.
Yeah.
And I would say social media, because with social media, we're always putting our best selves out there. You know, we're always showing like the best face we possibly can. And I think that it feels almost weak or vulnerable, I would say. And sometimes we equate vulnerability to weakness, but I think vulnerability is actually a strength. And because we equate vulnerability to weakness, we don't want to put ourselves out there. Because it feels so uncomfortable. And it's like, what if I get rejected? And social media, I feel like, is very much like, oh, no, I'm going to always have my best foot forward. I'm always going to look and play the part.
Yeah, I actually didn't think about how social media played an impact in that, but that's so real. And there's also this dynamic on social media of always talking. Like, you're always showing people your life. Like, look at me, hear my take. Like, this is what I have to say. But that's not how real life works. Like, that's not how relationships work. That's like a one-sided relationship. In reality, like, if you want to make a friend, you're not going to be like, hey, this is what I had for breakfast, and you know, after this I'm going to Target. Let me show you what I got. I mean, like, actually that sounds fun. That was not a good example, but like, I would love to know what you had for breakfast and go to Target with you. But like, essentially what I'm saying is you have to actually be interested in the other person. Like, rather than focus on being interesting, focus on being interested.
Come on.
Like, yes. Like,
so good.
I think social media, I'm so glad you brought up social media, because I think social media has like deteriorated our everyday conversation skills. Like, we think that we have to come up with the most interesting things to say, when if we could just ask some questions. Hey, how was your day? Right? How are you doing? How's your soul? And that's something that Avrielle does really well. You know, she asks a lot of questions, and it's nice. It's nice because a lot of times, you know, we work at our jobs and people are just constantly telling us what to do, and you're constantly hearing about everyone else. Like, how often does someone ask you about you? You know? It's a gift to have. So if you would want that, if you want to make a friend, that's how you do it. You know, you ask questions, you focus on being interested and not interesting. So yeah, that's huge. Did you have?
I was gonna say, can I add to that?
Yes.
You actually taught me so much more about that.
Really?
Yes, because I remember we just have conversations in the beginning, and I've had friends before you, but I've never had friends to the level where you would ask me so many questions. And they'd be questions I wouldn't even be thinking about. Like, whoa, now I need to do some introspection, maybe go to therapy, because I really don't know the answer to that. Literally, you would ask me these like really amazing questions that would force me to actually dig deeper, and I think that's what made our bond so much stronger, because it made me search myself more, and then helped us to connect, because now you're learning me and I'm learning me, and it's like this journey we're going together, you know, and then it taught me in turn to ask you those same kinds of questions. So you probably don't realize it now, but like, I literally have like a bag of all your questions. I just asked them back to you.
Well, that's really good. And I think what's really cool about that is anything that you want to receive, give it first.
Yeah.
Like there's this taker's mentality we have. Oh my goodness, I had to break that off of me. I used to really suck at relationships. I'm not gonna like sugarcoat it for you guys. Like I used to have 0 social skills. I would walk into a room and I would think, oh, why is nobody talking to me? Like it's so cliquey here. Nobody is just even interested in talking to me. Why aren't they inviting me? And it's so funny because my husband, he's a huge connector, huge people person, and I had never been around somebody who's like naturally in that lane. And so whenever we first started dating, I kind of like watched him do it. And I was like, I used to think that people who had a lot of friends were just really, you know, interesting people. I'm like, oh, you just must be like really cool or something. I mean, he is interesting. That's not what I'm trying to say. But like, that wasn't the thing. Let me take my foot out of my mouth. What I found was, this is what Michael would do. He would be the inviter. He would say, oh, I'm going out to go do this. Oh, let me think about this person. Let me think about that person. He would go into a room, and then rather expecting people to come to him, he'd be like, oh, who am I gonna go talk to? Like, who am I gonna go make feel included?
So good.
He had a giver's mentality, and I realized that this sense of entitlement when it came to relationships was what was stifling me from having rich relationships.
Yeah.
We're not entitled to people begging to be our friends. Like, we build these friendships by giving.
Yes.
And it's more blessed to give than to receive.
It is.
Like when you are a good friend, I think it's like so rewarding.
100%.
You know, like it's nice to receive, but even better to give.
Yes.
It's like sometimes it can be uncomfortable receiving, like, oh my gosh, it's too much love, it's too much support, like, oh, I'm just being too much, you know? But like when it comes to giving, you're like, I'll do anything for you.
Yeah.
Ask, I'll be there. It's nothing. Because we understand it's more blessed to give than to receive.
Yes.
And so I think switching from a taker's mentality and this sense of entitlement, people have to come to me. It's like, no, I'm gonna go to them. Anything that I would want in a relationship, let me be that first.
Yes.
And it does take the willingness to risk.
Yeah.
Risk rejection.
Yeah.
But it's high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I'd say that.
I would agree. Yeah, and I would also say like, it plays a role in giving, which it is the same thing, like serving, like service. Making sure that you are of service to that person. And we're both being of service to each other.
Yeah.
Because I find that our relationship is so rich because we truly serve each other so much. It doesn't ever feel like off balance. And even if there is a season where it's like, maybe I'm more of an emotional wreck and I need more of your support, or vice versa. You know, it always ends up balancing itself out.
Yeah.
Because we're always looking to see where we can serve each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Gosh, that's so good. Yeah, we were talking about this before, and one of the things that Avrielle mentioned was like going out of your way to do something for someone. Like going out of your way to show them, I'm thinking of you, like bringing them lunch. And so those are like a few nuggets. We are gonna also talk about like keeping friendships and like making them even more rich. But was there anything else you wanted to add to the making piece?
No, I don't think so. Let me look at my notes.
Yo, our notes are good.
Our notes are so good. Okay, we actually said everything.
Oh.
We did. Wow, we did that really quickly.
Go team. All right, so let's talk keeping friendships, because how many of you guys, like we're a family, okay? How many of you guys have experienced friendship fallouts? Yeah. Yeah. It hurts. It hurts a lot.
Yeah.
It hurts a lot. And a lot of times those are the things that can hold us back from not who God has called us to be, but what he's called us to do.
Yeah.
Because maybe a friendship has fallen apart, and so we don't believe for this or that or what they spoke or whatever it may be. And so when it comes to building rich relationships and keeping them and not just having it sustain, but get better and better, what are some principles that you think we can follow to do that?
I would say intentionality. And the reason I say that is because, you know, when you're in elementary school and high school, you're friends with people because it's like, oh, we're in proximity. You know, like we go to the same school or we're on the same team or whatever the case is. It feels like a lot more work to make friends in adulthood, because how many of us know how many of us are close to our closest friends in terms of where we live? It's not the same anymore.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot more intentionality to now be like, okay, when are you free? And then I'm gonna drive 20, 30 minutes, however far, to your house.
Yeah.
And if you live out of state, do any of you guys have out of state friends? Yeah, it's like a FaceTime date and like planning a trip.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot more work.
Yeah.
And I think we're not used to that, because when we're kids, it's so easy to just go up the street, you know? And so I think intentionality is so important, because it's like, hey, Amanda, I really miss you this week.
Yeah.
And how can we spend time together? When are you free? We do that so much.
Yeah.
Like, this is not just something that, like, I'm telling you guys, it's something we've actually done. We've had seasons where Amanda is more busier than me, or like I just recently was, well, I was gonna say just recently was pregnant. I'm still pregnant. But the first trimester is ghetto, okay? So I was just in bed every day. It was so hard. And honestly, she was like, hey, like, I'm about to get my lashes done, but like, are you free? I can come by. And I laid in bed on my pregnancy pillow.
Yeah, she was laying in bed and I was just like on a beanbag, and I'm like, this is great.
I got my son's beanbag for my chair, and she just sat in front of me. And it's like, yeah, I wasn't all dolled up. I wasn't looking the best. She looks so good because her lashes were done. I mean, she looks good when it's not done. Oh. But literally, it's just that intentionality to plan.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard when you're an adult. It's hard to plan a date night with my husband, you know? And it's like, now I have to think about planning another relationship outside of this.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of work.
Ooh.
It does.
The work piece.
Yes.
The work piece. Okay, so a lot of times we think that the work is only in the pursuit. And it's kind of like with relationships, like romantic relationships. We think that the work is just in getting the boyfriend or whatever, getting the husband. Well, but like, you gotta keep it too, right?
Yeah.
And then we want that from husbands, right? It's like, I don't want him to just pursue me once. I want him to keep pursuing me while I'm married. Well, I think you need to have that same mentality with your friendships.
Yes.
It's like, okay, I want more friends, but we don't understand the relationship is work.
Yeah.
It's rewarding work, you know? It's like one of the best gifts you could possibly have.
Yes.
But it's work.
It is.
You have to be intentional about
Yes.
it. I think you mentioned something about the Atomic Habits. What was that when you're reading it?
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
such a good book. You guys should read it.
What's it called?
Atomic Habits, and it's by James Clear. And it basically talks about like setting up good habits in your life and all that stuff, because we all have habits, either negative ones or positive ones. He basically talks about how you can form good ones. And one of the things he talks about is it's never gonna happen if you don't set a day and time. And that is so true. Okay, tell the truth. How many of you guys have been like, okay, I'm gonna go to the gym this week, and you didn't go? I've been saying I was gonna go to the gym for the last 2 years. It's never happened. But that's okay, because clearly I'm not serious about it. But I'm just saying. But if you're serious about something enough, you show that by setting a day and a time. Like, same thing with my husband. So it's like, okay, one time we weren't having hard times, but we weren't seeing each other a lot, and I was still in Georgia and you were in Texas. And we weren't like, I just felt like we weren't connecting as much. And we talked about it. And something that we did, you actually brought it up, and it was so good. You were like, hey, how about we make every Wednesday our thing? And it was so good for our friendship. Every Wednesday at a certain time, we always ended up crying at the end. and telling each other how much we loved each other. But it was so good because it was like this uninterrupted time where there was no kids, no husband, no nothing. And even though we were in different states, I felt so close to you.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this is falling off. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I felt so close to you because we had this set day and time that nothing was touching.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just us.
Yeah.
And I loved that.
Yeah. Okay, I have to keep it real. I'm really glad that we ended up setting that. But this was happening in a time in my life before I had been formally diagnosed with ADHD. And I actually it was a huge insecurity of mine because I'm like, I really have trouble planning and scheduling. And I have a lot of trouble keeping up with text messages. Any of y'all who text me know. It'll sit there for a few days. Emails, it's just not gonna happen. Like, it's always been like this insecurity. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I just get it together? And because sometimes it would feed into my relationships, it's like, in order to have good relationships, you gotta text, you gotta call, you gotta schedule. It was a really huge insecurity of mine. But what I did was I was just vulnerable. It was before I even knew like there was a diagnosis and I had some like tools and everything, but I was just really vulnerable. I was like, Avrielle, I don't know what it is. I value our friendship. I value our time. Like, you are definitely a priority to me, but I really struggle with like keeping up with the text messages. It slips through the cracks. I mean, I'm so sorry. I don't know how else to do it. However, how about we just set one time? If we text on top of that, great. But let's just set this one day and we know that that's set. Yeah. And that took a lot of vulnerability, you know? Like, of course, we ended up finding a solution. And then there came a point to where it was like, she was just such a part of my life to where I didn't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
But it took a lot of vulnerability to be like, hey, I don't feel like I'm being a good friend. I don't really know what to do, but I value you. Yeah. And I think as women, we crave that vulnerability, but I think we're not normally the first ones to act. It's like, I'll be vulnerable if you're vulnerable first, right? But like, to just let your guard down first and show your soft side, I mean, that is one way to expedite your friendship. Yeah. And she had so much grace for me. The thing is, when you're vulnerable about your weaknesses, people tend to have a lot of grace. Yep. It's only when you're just like, I don't even want to explain myself, you know, you're running, you're hiding, and you feel ashamed. Right. They don't know that whole inner struggle you're having. All they're getting is the cold shoulder. Right. But if you're vulnerable about it, then it can actually be something, your weaknesses can be something that bring you guys close together versus your weaknesses being something that bring you apart. And that could have went left if you never communicated your desire for me. Yeah. I think desire is such an important piece because if we're talking and I'm like, oh, I feel like, you know, you're not really present, that's going to send a message to me that you're just not present. You don't care, you know? But because we were able to have that honest and open conversation where you communicated your desire, you're like, I love you. I actually want you in my life. Yeah. It would have been so different if it was just like, you're just not texting and there's no desire. Right. You know? Yeah. So yeah, I just want to add that piece. Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about like actually communicating desire for another female friendship. Like, I think we feel like it's kind of weird or funny to be like, hey, I really want to be friends with you, or I really love you, I really like you. Like, why do we think that's weird? Right. You know, like, I mean, I don't want to be cold. I was going to say, if they reject you, they're lost, which is true. But I know it's true. It's true. But I mean, I think sometimes when we're in it, we're so scared of that rejection that we don't. But like I said, like we think, what if it doesn't work out? What if they hurt me? What if they reject me? What if they don't feel the same, this, that, and third? But what if it goes right? Yeah. What if it becomes one of the best relationships you ever had? If Avrielle didn't DM me, hey, I think we could be friends, she would have been robbing me of one of the richest friendships I've ever had because of her own self-preservation. Like, you don't even realize, like, by you not opening yourself up to other people and expressing your interest or being vulnerable, you're actually robbing them of an opportunity of friendship with you.
So good. So
if you
good.
have a giver's mentality when it comes to that, you're saying, no, I'm giving you the opportunity to have an amazing friend, you know? And when you think that, then I guess it makes it a little bit easier to put yourself out there because you understand your own value.
Yes.
You know?
And since we're talking about that time in our life, I think just to rewind a little bit, because we're talking about keeping friendships. And during that
Just bring it
time,
a little higher. I think
Oh,
you sound
sorry.
a little low. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, since we're talking about keeping friendships, around that time, we were both dealing with our own insecurities about our
Friendship
in general.
because of other things we experience, independent,
Right.
because sometimes you got to work through other friendship trauma while you're building new friendships and not bringing it to the new friendships.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
And I remember during that time, to be completely transparent, do you mind me sharing the story?
I don't know which one.
It's gonna be about me.
Okay, you know,
It's nothing about you.
Oh, like, which one?
You're so funny.
You know everything about me. You could ruin me.
Stop. I would never put out anything.
Don't air out my dinner. No, I know you wouldn't.
But during that time, something I was battling with was feeling like my friendships in the past were one-sided. So because I felt like I was getting one-sided behavior, even though I knew she was different, I knew her heart was different towards me, I knew she cared, I started to battle internally with this belief that, oh my goodness, like, here I go again. This is a one-sided relationship. And the friendship could have died there. Because a lot of the times, our friendships, actually all the time, before they die physically, they die emotionally and in our hearts first. That's where they die first.
It's true.
Because we now start to believe the lie of the enemy, of what the enemy was saying.
Wow.
The enemy was telling me, oh, she doesn't care about you as much, she's not present. Even though I knew that wasn't the case, my emotions were running rampant because it was a trauma, it was a trigger. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be one-sided, here we go again, I can't deal with this, da-da-da-da. But then I knew I needed to tell her. I needed to just confront it and tell her and say it. And it was so hard for me. It was incredibly hard for me to tell her because I felt so vulnerable, so uncomfortable. Our friendship was just forming. And I didn't want her to be like, you're needy, you're clingy, all the things the enemy was telling me. When I just wanted reciprocity, that doesn't make you needy, that doesn't make you clingy.
Makes you human.
It makes you human.
Yeah.
And you know it's a friendship when you are getting reciprocity.
Yeah.
You know? And because I knew I desired this relationship with her so much and I knew she loved me, I just had to trust and believe that this was who God sent.
Yes.
And I told her, and I remember I was crying so much. It was so hard. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just so needy.
Yeah.
But she was so affirming and so loving, and thank you so much for telling me. And that it was so healing because that same day, you and Michael like surprised us, came over to the house, brought me cookies. I love chocolate chip cookies. It's my weakness. And she knew that. And it was just so healing because God showed me right there in that moment, this is different. This is different. And sometimes we don't believe it's gonna be different. And because we don't believe it's gonna be different, we don't share.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, that's what you need to do because it dies in your mind first. And if I just ran with those thoughts and never told her, our relationship would have been over.
Yeah. Y'all, write this down. Hard conversations don't ruin relationships.
Yes.
Hard conversations that never happen do.
Right.
You have to be willing to have the hard conversations
Yeah.
if you want to have rich relationships. That's the work that goes into it.
Right.
The hard conversations, the vulnerability.
Right.
One thing, and this will be the last thing we mention, and then we'll take a few questions before our next session. But one of the things that Avrielle did that completely set the tone for the relationship that we have from the very beginning and set it apart from all the others was in the beginning, when we're still forming our friendship, she called me and she said, hey, Amanda, I know, she kind of prefaced, I don't know what she said, but it could have been like, I don't know, this might sound weird, but, you know, but I'm sensing that the enemy is attacking our thoughts when it comes to our relationship, and that we need to pray. When she said that, it was the first time I had ever heard somebody contend for their friendship with me in the spirit. The first time ever. Because any other friendship that I had had, if they had a thought about me, they would bring those thoughts about me to me, or they'd bring those thoughts about me to somebody else. But they wouldn't present them in light of God and say, let's expose this and let's bind it and cast it out. And so whenever she said that, it just switched something in my mind, and I was like, oh, instead of entertaining any thoughts that could arise, we can just say, no, this is a kingdom ordained friendship. This is a friendship that will prosper. Therefore, if there are any thoughts that rise against it, we're just gonna take it captive and cast it out in the name of Jesus. And so what we did, I was like, you know what, Ave? You're spot on. She's a prophet. I mean, she's like 100% prophetic. She be having dreams about you. Like, it's crazy. Like, yeah. You're not gonna get anything past her. Let me just say that. You're not gonna get it past God, and God is gonna tell her. So just be careful, okay? Because she's a whole prophet. Anyways, when she said that, I was like, Ave, you're right, because she's never off in the spirit. I was like, Ave, you're right, you know, because this is when our relationship was kind of fresh, and I was like, you know, I'm afraid, you know, I'm afraid of this relationship falling apart. You know, it was a season in my life where I had lost a lot of relationships, and it was just really painful for me. And I was like, I don't want to lose Avrielle, I'm afraid. And I was able to tell her, and she exposed it, but she understood who the true enemy was. And she didn't put the target on my back. She said, no, I'm sensing the enemy. And then we prayed about it on the phone, and I was like, this is different. And so prayer is a foundational principle. When it comes to kingdom friendships. Was there anything you wanted to add before we did Q&A?
I was just gonna agree with you. Spiritual, like, you need to fight for your friendship. It's actually the most important component, but the one that we tend to neglect the most. You know, so yeah.
I know we don't have our mic up here, but if you guys have any questions, we'll hear from here and we'll repeat it. But this is...
Oh, he's coming.
Oh, perfect. We have a mic coming up. Y'all come on up with your questions. Hey. What's up? What's your name?
My name is Dee Dee.
Hey, let's give it up for Dee Dee. What's up, Dee Dee? Hey.
So I've never really had a problem with vulnerability. In fact, I probably share too many things too fast. I had to scale back a little bit. But my question is, how can I be vulnerable again after trust was broken in past relationships? In the past, I've had a lot of people use things that I shared in private, and they shared it with other people, and other people started to kind of like blacklist me and things like that. So how do I step back into that? Because it's not like a fear, but it's more so like the rejection that you're talking about. I'm afraid of rejection, like what if they don't accept me, but also just wanting to be accepted. Like I just wanted to be accepted. We don't have to be like friends forever. It could be a seasonal friendship, but like being accepted. How do I just kind of like step back out there?
That's such a good question.
That is a good question.
I mean, I'm happy to go. I just want to see if you had.
Yeah, I can go.
Yeah.
So really, really good question. Thank you for asking. I think what's really important when it comes to stepping back out there is actually praying and asking God, is this relationship safe? Because I think sometimes when it comes to friendships, we are so excited as women, like, ooh, a new friend, like we're so excited, you know? And then we bypass the whole asking God part. You know, you meet somebody and it's like, ooh. And then you forget. It may have seemed like I frivolously DM'd Amanda, but I saw her in the spirit first to do that. So the reason why I say that is it's so important to include God in those relationships. I think we would have avoided a lot of hurt in our lives if we asked him first. Because he cares for us, he loves us, and he doesn't want anybody that's gonna cause that kind of pain in our lives around us. So I would say, number one, ask God first, and he will show you that person's heart. He knows the heart of man.
I was literally gonna say the same thing.
Wow, twins.
Literally, because that's what I've learned. Yeah, like twinning. Yeah, that's literally what I've learned. Every single time I've experienced a lot of pain in a relationship, it's a relationship I never asked God about. Because anytime I've consulted with God on a relationship, he has always told me.
Yeah.
He has never left me in the dark.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really good.
And I think that when you have a good kingdom relationship, sometimes what can happen is you're excited, but then you bounce it off someone you trust and love, and they might see for you. And you trust.
That's true.
You know, because that's happened with us so many times.
Yeah.
Where I might not be seeing and she sees, or she might not be seeing and I see.
Yeah.
So I think also bouncing it off of the people that love and care for you, who are proven in your lives, that can see in the spirit.
I like that you said proven, because I think a lot of times we're quick to trust, and we can put all of our faith and trust in God.
Yeah.
But when it comes to trust with people, you love them hard, you're kind, but trust still has to be proven.
Yeah.
Like, you have to prove yourself trustworthy. Like, I have shared things with people that I shouldn't have shared with, because I'm like, I know you're a gossip. Like, what basis should I have ever trusted you? Like, I put myself in that situation.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, actually looking at the fruit. Oh my goodness. Anytime the enemy has like put any thoughts in my mind about like our friendship, it's so easy to cast down, because I'm like, she got receipts. I got this time, that time, this time, that time. You know, like when somebody has a track record, you have that trust, they're proven.
Yes.
That way, even when the enemy's trying to get in your head, of course you can pray about it, cast it out, and then you can also just remind yourself, this person has a track record.
Yes.
Here's the truth.
That's so good.
We'll probably take like one more question. Hey, girl.
Hey, AJ.
Hey.
I don't exactly have a question, more so like a thank you.
Yeah.
I said I was gonna come up here and not cry. So I had one best friend since that connection, grade 6, you would call it.
Yeah.
Avrielle. Like, my name is Marsha, my name is Sheesh. Do you wanna be best friends?
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
20 years of friendship.
And come a little bit closer.
And 20 years of friendship, tragically lost my best friend. And being there in her final moments and fostering that friendship for so long and finding Jesus together and doing absolutely everything together. Even though separate, like we went to different colleges, we did all these things, but always finding that connection, finding that time for one another. Like, she was a pediatric resident. Like, she was busy. I was busy. We all had our own lives, and we each had our own lives. So it's important. Like, Sundays were our day. Like, Wednesdays were your day. So are your day. So there's so much value in a real friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you don't know when those final moments can be.
Yeah.
And I was there when we took her to the OR to donate her organs and save so many other lives. Like, the final moments, like, those are important relationships, even more so important than a romantic relationship a lot of times, because our relationship outlived so many romantic relationships, you know?
Yeah.
So it's important and it's valuable to try the spirit, even in a platonic relationship with a girlfriend.
Yeah.
That was my sister.
Yeah.
So good.
So
thank you.
This is good.
Thank you.
This is really
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that.
That is the perfect way to end our session.
So good. Thank you, AJ.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Guys, can y'all give a really, really big clap for Avrielle? Because I mean, this was such a great session. I'm so proud of her. I love you so much. Thank you for doing this.